I'm going to describe something to you, and I need you to let the image fully form in your head before I keep going. Because if you rush past this, you will not understand why this case is different from every other one you've heard. A police officer walking alone through the woods outside a small town in France. Early January 2018. It is cold. The trees are bare, and on the ground in front of him a trail of blood, not a drop, not a splash, a trail, continuous, leading deeper into the forest. He followed it. What he found at the end of that trail was already devastating. But it was what he found when he started asking questions, when he started looking at the months before, that turned a sad story into something that should not be possible. Stay right here. The town of Gray sits in the Haute-Saône department of eastern France, a quiet provincial town of about 20,000 people, surrounded by forest, fields, and the kind of slow, unhurried life that makes headlines jarring when they come. In January of 2018, they came. A police officer on patrol noticed something in the tree line at the edge of town, something dark on the frozen ground that caught the light wrong. He stopped his vehicle. He walked into the woods, and there it was, a trail of blood cutting through the underbrush in a straight, purposeful line. He followed the trail for several hundred meters before he found the body. A man, shot in the head. Based on the position and the evidence, investigators initially categorized it as a probable suicide. The weapon was present. The trajectory was consistent. There was no obvious indication of another person's involvement. And then one of the responding officers made a quiet, offhand observation, something to the effect of, "This isn't the first one out here." It wasn't. In the months preceding this discovery, Gray had seen a pattern that no one had officially connected, partly because each incident had been investigated in isolation, partly because the cases were spread across different jurisdictions, and partly because individually, each one had an explanation. Sad but explainable. People in crisis. People isolated. People who had, according to the paperwork, died by their own hands. But when the officer who found the January body started pulling the thread, when he began quietly mapping the incidents geographically and chronologically, the picture that emerged was troubling in a way that resisted easy categorization. The locations weren't random. They were clustered, not perfectly, but with enough geographic consistency that if you drew a radius around the wooded areas east of Gray, almost every incident fell inside it. And the time frames, the months, the seasons, showed a rhythm that felt less like chance and more like a pattern. More disturbing was what investigators found when they began cross-referencing the victims' backgrounds. Several of them had overlapping social contacts, not close relationships, not friends or family, but peripheral connections. They had been part of the same local social groups, attended the same community events, been treated at the same regional clinic. One particular clinic name appeared in 4 of the cases, not as a primary connection, but as background detail, a referral, a mentioned appointment, a form checkbox. It was the kind of detail that shows up so quietly in case files that it takes a specific kind of attention to notice it. Whether that connection was meaningful, coincidental, or simply a reflection of how small communities work, where everyone inevitably passes through the same institutions, was never definitively established, but it was noted. The January 2018 death remained officially categorized as a suicide. So did the others. What the officer's unofficial mapping produced, and what he shared with at least one journalist in 2019 before abruptly declining further comment, was a document he described as a geographic and demographic coincidence index. Not a case, not an accusation, just a record of things that individually were explainable but collectively refused to sit quietly in separate files. The journalist never published the full document. The officer transferred to a different department. The cases stayed in their individual files. Gray, France is very small. The woods east of the town are very quiet. And whatever pattern lived in those files, real, imagined, or something in between, is still there, undisturbed in a cabinet somewhere in the hot Saiyan. What I can't shake about this case, and I genuinely want your read in the comments, is the officer who started mapping it and then went quiet. That's the thing about small towns. The people who notice the pattern are also the people who have to keep living there. The journalist who pulled back. The file that was never quite a case. Sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what's in the woods. It's who decided not to go back in after it. WhisprFrame is where we go back in. Subscribe, hit that bell, and every week we're right here in the dark with you. Don't be the person who finds out about this channel through someone else 3 months from now. That would be genuinely embarrassing for you, and we'd feel terrible about it.